My sister-in-law tried to claim my daughter as her own at Thanksgiving, until we hid, escaped, and exposed her dark obsession. The quiet suburban neighborhood in Ohio began its Thanksgiving morning peacefully. Emily Thompson stood in her kitchen brewing coffee, gazing out the window at the maple trees dressed in their autumn colors. The November morning air was cold and crisp, so much so that her breath was visible in white puffs. "Mom, can I wear this?" 5-year-old Lily came running down the stairs, clutching her favorite red velvet dress. It was a gift from her grandmother Margaret last Christmas, and Lily always wanted to wear it on special occasions. "Of course, sweetheart, but let's have breakfast first," Emily replied, gently stroking her daughter's head. "We still have time before we go to Grandma's house." Lily clasped her small hands together in front of her chest and bounced around, unable to contain her excitement. "Grandma's turkey is really, really big, right? Daddy told me." "Yes, Grandma is an excellent cook." Emily smiled as she mixed pancake batter. Thanksgiving was their annual Precious family gathering, a traditional event where relatives gathered at Margaret's house, Jacob's mother. Jacob came down from the bedroom just as Emily was putting up Lily's hair. Her husband, who taught physical education at the high school, seemed more relaxed than usual this morning. He took his coffee cup and kissed his wife and daughter. "Daddy, what are we going to do at Grandma's house today?" Lily asked with sparkling eyes. "Well, you might make cookies with Grandma, and Grandpa might play with you in the yard," Jacob answered while checking his phone. He found a message from his mother, and his expression changed slightly. "What's wrong?" Emily noticed and asked. "A message from Mom." "Bethany's coming today too," Jacob said, setting down his phone. Bethany was his sister, who hadn't been showing up to family gatherings much lately. "That's wonderful. It'll be nice to see her after so long." Emily smiled, though she noticed her husband's expression had clouded slightly. However, she didn't pry deeply into the reason. She understood that families each had their own circumstances. While loading things into the car, Jacob suddenly suggested, "Let's come home early today. Lily will get tired too." "But we usually stay late into the evening," Emily replied, a bit surprised. "Well, tomorrow's a holiday too, and we need time to relax at home," Jacob said, opening the car door with a somewhat hurried manner. Lily was humming a little song while fastening her seatbelt in the back seat. Looking at the scenery flowing past the window, she imagined the fun times that would continue all day. "It's been a while since we've seen Aunt Bethany," Emily said to her husband in the driver's seat. "When was the last time we saw her?" "Let's see, probably around the end of summer," Jacob answered, concentrating on the road ahead. His voice seemed to contain a slight tension, but Emily thought it was worry about traffic. The 40-minute drive to the in-laws' house was filled with Lily's cheerful chatter and light music flowing from the radio. Emily gazed at the pastoral scenery flowing past the window, hoping today would be a wonderful memory for the family. When Margaret's house came into view, Lily bounced up in her seat with excitement. "We're here! We're here!" Several other relatives' cars were already parked in front of the large white house, and thin smoke was rising from the chimney. "Well, we're here." Emily turned around and smiled at her daughter. Warm light leaked from inside the house, and the delicious aroma of cooking wafted from somewhere. Jacob took a deep breath as he parked the car. Then he showed a bright smile to his family. "All right, let's go." Even before the front door opened, Margaret's warm voice could be heard. "Oh, you're here. I've been waiting for you." Margaret's embrace was as warm and enveloping as always. She had carefully styled her gray hair and wore a deep green blouse suitable for Thanksgiving. Other relatives' laughter was already echoing in the entrance hall, and the entire house was wrapped in a festive atmosphere. "Lily, that dress really suits you," Margaret said, lifting her granddaughter. "Everyone's in the living room. Come on, let's go in." In the living room, Jacob's uncle and aunt and their cousins had already gathered. A fire was burning in the fireplace, filling the entire room with comfortable warmth. Appetizers were beautifully arranged on the table, and the aroma of roast turkey wafted from somewhere. "Oh, Emily." Aunt Rose stood up to greet them. "It's been so long. How's work?" "The dental office must be busy." "Yes, thankfully. It's part-time, but it's rewarding work. Emily smiled. She worked 3 days a week as an assistant at the local dental office. Lily left her grandmother's side and ran to her cousins. The children's bright voices filled the room, and the adults looked relieved. Emily sat next to her husband, enjoying conversations with relatives she hadn't seen in a while. About 30 minutes later, the front doorbell rang. Margaret said, "Oh, Bethany must be here," and got up from her seat. Emily looked at Jacob's expression. She noticed the muscles in his jaw tense slightly. "Thank you for coming, Bethany." Margaret's voice could be heard from the entrance. "I'm glad you came. Everyone's in the living room." After a while, Bethany appeared in the living room. She looked thinner than usual, with faint dark circles under her eyes. However, the moment she saw Lily, her face lit up. "Lily!" Bethany knelt down and spread both arms. Lily ran over happily and jumped into her aunt's arms. "Aunt Bethany." "It's been so long." Bethany continued to hold Lily tightly. The embrace felt much longer than a normal greeting. Emily watched with a smile, but noticed that Bethany didn't seem to want to let Lily go. "Have you been well, Lily? Auntie has wanted to see you for so long," Bethany said, kissing her niece's cheek repeatedly. "Yes, I've gotten really good at drawing in kindergarten," Lily answered happily. "Really? I'd love to see them. Would you come play at Auntie's house sometime?" Emily sensed something different in Bethany's voice than usual. It had a tone that resembled longing. However, at family gatherings, it was natural for everyone to dote on the children. "Should I help in the kitchen?" Emily called out to Margaret. "Thank you. That would be helpful. I still have vegetables to prepare." Margaret showed a grateful expression. On the way to the kitchen, Emily saw that Bethany still had Lily sitting on her lap. She was stroking her niece's hair while speaking to her in what seemed like whispers. "Bethany really adores Lily," Margaret said while washing vegetables. "She's been having a hard time lately, so she seems really happy when Lily's around." "Hard time? Did something happen?" Emily asked while peeling carrots. Margaret hesitated a little before answering. "She's been continuing fertility treatments. It's been about 5 years now. Last month it failed again. I really feel sorry for her." Emily stopped what she was doing and turned around. "I didn't know that. She doesn't like to talk to people about it, but as a mother, it's painful to watch. So, when there's a sweet child like Lily around, she seems really comforted." Emily felt conflicted. While she could understand Bethany's suffering, she felt a slight unease about the intensity of affection Bethany directed toward Lily. When they returned to the living room, Bethany was reading a picture book to Lily. The other children were absorbed in different games, but only Lily was sitting next to Bethany. "Lily, what do you call Auntie?" Bethany suddenly asked. "Aunt Bethany?" Lily answered matter-of-factly. "You could call me Mommy. Would that be okay?" Bethany's voice was sweet and slightly trembling. Emily nearly dropped the wine glass she was holding. It felt like the conversation in the living room stopped for a moment. "But Mommy is Mommy," Lily said with a troubled expression. "Aunt Bethany is an aunt, right?" "That's right. Auntie is an auntie." Bethany laughed, but her smile contained sadness. Jacob stood up and walked over to his daughter. "Lily, your cousins want to play too. Let's go look at the yard together." "Yes." Lily took her father's hand and stood up. Bethany tried to hide her disappointed expression, but Emily could see it clearly. As they watched the children go out to the yard, Margaret sighed. "Bethany really wants a child. It's pitiful to watch." "I can imagine," Emily replied while watching her daughter playing happily outside the window. Bethany was also standing by the window, looking at Lily in the same way. "Emily." Bethany turned around and called out. "Lily looks so happy. You're a wonderful mother. Thank you." Emily smiled, but didn't miss the complex emotions floating in Bethany's eyes. It was admiration and, at the same time, something resembling envy. As the afternoon deepened, Bethany increasingly stayed close to Lily. Among the other women helping with meal preparation, she alone remained in the living room playing with the children. However, it seemed her attention was directed only at Lily. "Dinner preparation is almost ready," Margaret called from the kitchen. "Everyone, let's move to the dining room." Emily went out to the yard to call her daughter. Lily was having fun collecting fallen leaves with her cousins. Her cheeks were red from the cold air, and her eyes sparkled. "Lily, it's time for dinner. Just a little longer." Lily turned around and answered. At that moment, Bethany came out to the yard. "Lily, shall we go wash our hands together with Auntie?" Lily happily took Bethany's hand. Emily followed behind, watching Bethany hold Lily's hand firmly. The way she gripped it was as if she didn't want to let go of a precious treasure. The dining room table was beautifully set by Margaret's hands. A golden brown turkey was placed in the center, surrounded by colorful dishes. Candlelight created a warm atmosphere, truly a scene befitting Thanksgiving. However, an indescribable unease began to sprout in Emily's heart. It was something that could be called a mother's intuition, not clearly reasoned, but definitely present. "Now, everyone, please take your seats." Margaret clapped her hands and called out, "Let's thank God that our family can gather together like this again this year." The family gathered around the dining table, offered a prayer of gratitude, and then began their meal in harmony. The savory aroma of turkey filled the room, and mashed potatoes and cranberry sauce were served onto plates one after another. Children's laughter mixed with adults' conversation, creating a typical American Thanksgiving scene. However, Emily's attention was fixed on Bethany, who sat across the table. She had initially sat across from Lily according to the seating arrangement Margaret had prepared, but after the meal had been going for a while, she suddenly stood up. "Excuse me, may I sit next to Lily?" Bethany said with a smile. "It's been so long. I'd like to talk more closely." "Of course," Margaret readily agreed. "Uncle Jim, could you move over a little?" The seating was rearranged, and Bethany sat next to Lily. She immediately began putting additional food on Lily's plate. "Lily, try this too. This is the sweet potato that Auntie made." Bethany carefully tended to Lily. "Thank you, Aunt Bethany," Lily answered happily. Emily watched with a smile, but began to notice that Bethany's behavior was gradually escalating. She straightened Lily's napkin, wiped up spilled food, acting exactly like a mother. "Lily," Bethany suddenly said in the middle of the meal, "how about having a sleepover at Auntie's house this weekend? We'll do lots of fun things." Emily stopped her fork and looked at Bethany. "A sleepover?" "Yes." Bethany's eyes were shining. "I have a guest room in my apartment. It's perfect for Lily. We can watch movies together, make cookies." "But Lily is still small," Emily answered gently. "A sleepover might be a little early." "That's not true," Margaret chimed in. "Lily is 5 years old, right? She's had sleepovers at our house before." "That's because it's Grandma's house," Emily tried to explain. "Bethany's house is family too," Margaret continued. "One night or 2 nights, or even a week, would be fine. It would be good for Bethany to have a change of pace too." Emily looked at her husband. Jacob continued eating silently, but she could see the muscles in his jaw tense. "Yes, about a week," Bethany continued excitedly. "I can take vacation from work. We could go to the park every day, go to the zoo. If I had time to spend with Lily, I could—" "Bethany," Emily gently interrupted. "Lily has school, and she has her daily routine. Suddenly being away from home for a week, it's kindergarten, right? Missing a week wouldn't hurt." Bethany's voice contained a hint of irritation. "Isn't time spent with family more important for a child?" The atmosphere at the table changed subtly. The other relatives continued their conversation, but Emily felt their glances. "As a mother, I want to judge what's best for Lily," Emily answered clearly. At that moment, Bethany's expression changed. Her smile disappeared, and a cold light appeared in her eyes. "Do you think you're perfect as a mother?" "I'm not saying that, but Lily is a member of the family too. We have the right to spend time with her too." Bethany's voice grew louder. Margaret nodded. "That's right, Emily. When Bethany adores her so much, why would you be against it?" Jacob suddenly stood up. His movement was swift and filled with determination. "Emily, Lily, come here for a moment." "Where to?" Emily was confused. "Just come." Jacob's voice was low and carried urgency. Emily took Lily's hand and followed her husband out of the dining room. Jacob walked quickly down the hallway toward a small pantry behind the kitchen. Jacob, what are you? Get in. He opened the door and pushed his wife and daughter inside. Then he entered himself and quietly closed the door from the inside. The pantry was dark and narrow, shelves lined with canned goods and preserved foods, with a faint smell of food. Lily clung to her father's arm. "Mommy, it's dark," Lily said in a small voice. "What's wrong?" "Why?" Emily started to ask her husband when Jacob put his index finger to his lips. "Shh, be quiet." His voice was as small as a whisper. Footsteps could be heard from the hallway, at first distant, but gradually approaching. It sounded hurried, as if searching for something. Lily, where are you?" Bethany's voice echoed in the hallway. Emily gasped. Lily tried to answer, but Jacob gently covered his daughter's mouth with his hand. "Lily, it's Auntie. Let's play together." Bethany's voice was like a mother searching for a lost child. However, that voice contained something abnormally obsessive. The footsteps entered the kitchen. They could hear the refrigerator opening, chairs moving. Bethany seemed to be searching the entire room. "Lily, are you playing hide-and-seek? Auntie will find you." The footsteps stopped in front of the pantry door. The three held their breath. Emily could hear her own heartbeat. Lily buried her face in her father's chest and trembled slightly. From beyond the door they could hear Bethany muttering something. It was too quiet to make out, but clearly in an abnormal tone. "Lily, come with Auntie. You are my—" Bethany's voice cut off. The sound of footsteps moving away could be heard. However, Jacob didn't try to move. He continued to hold his wife and daughter protectively. A few minutes later, voices could be heard from the other side of the house. "Bethany, where are you?" It was Margaret's voice. "Lily's gone." Bethany's voice sounded like she was crying. "She was just here, but she disappeared. She's probably playing somewhere. Maybe she's with Jacob and the others." "No, Lily, my Lily." Bethany's voice rose higher. Jacob took his wife's hand and quietly opened the door. No one was in the hallway. He gestured, and the three quietly left the pantry. "Let's go out the back door," Jacob whispered. They headed for the kitchen's back door. From the dining room, they could still hear the confused voices of relatives mixed in. When they opened the back door, the cold night air stung their cheeks. Jacob picked up his daughter and led his wife by the hand, going to the car through the shadow of the house. "Daddy, why were we hiding?" Lily asked in a small voice. "It's okay, Lily," Emily answered. "Let's go home." As they got in the car, Bethany's voice could be heard from inside the house. "Lily, Lily." It was a desperate cry. Jacob started the engine and quietly began driving without turning on the lights. As Margaret's house receded behind them, Emily couldn't look back. She still couldn't understand what had happened or why her husband had taken such action. However, one thing was certain: her husband had sensed some danger and tried to protect his family. And Bethany's behavior in the pantry was clearly not normal. The car continued driving through the quiet neighborhood streets. Jacob frequently checked the rearview mirror while driving. Tension filled the car, as if they were being pursued. Lily had fallen asleep on her mother's lap, but Emily's mind was full of confusion. "Jacob." Emily quietly called her husband's name. "What exactly happened? Why did you do that?" Jacob continued staring at the road ahead. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white. "I'll talk when we get home. But your mother must be worried." "We suddenly disappeared." "I'll contact Mom later." Jacob's voice was hard. "Right now, you and Lily's safety is the top priority." The word safety weighed heavily on Emily's chest. What did they need to be safe from? Bethany had certainly acted a bit strangely, but she didn't think it meant danger. When the car finally entered their home garage, Emily sighed with relief. However, that relief was short-lived. Jacob's cell phone began ringing. The caller ID showed Mother. "Aren't you going to answer?" Emily asked. "I can't right now." Jacob ignored the phone. "Take Lily to her bedroom. We'll talk in the living room." After putting Lily to bed, Emily returned to the living room. Jacob was standing, looking out the window. His shoulders were tense with strain. "Explain," Emily said, sitting in a chair. "I can't understand." Bethany was certainly a little strange, but to go that far... Jacob turned around. His eyes held a seriousness Emily had never seen before. "Emily, there are many things you don't know. Things the family has hidden about my sister." "Hidden things." Jacob took a deep breath and sat on the sofa. "You heard about Bethany's fertility treatments, right? But you don't know how much it's driving her to the edge." Emily waited silently for her husband's words. 3 months ago, Bethany had her 5th miscarriage. Jacob's voice was heavy. The doctor said pregnancy might be difficult from now on. From that time, she started acting strange. In what way? First, she cut off contact with friends who had children. Then, she started wandering around children's stores. She lied to the clerks saying it was for her own child, and bought large quantities of baby items. Emily gasped. "But that's not all," Jacob continued. "Last month, a neighbor contacted us. Bethany had apparently approached a strange child in the park, saying she was looking for the child, mother, and tried to walk away with them. The child's mother rushed over, and it almost became a police matter." "Oh my." Emily covered her mouth with her hand. "I consulted with Mom, but Mom said Bethany was pitiful and someone should lend her a child, and she mentioned Lily's name." Emily's blood drained from her face. "No way." "Mom was serious. If we could let her take care of Lily just on weekends, maybe Bethany would calm down." I was firmly against it. But Mom didn't understand. Jacob's cell phone rang again. This time there were continuous calls, one after another. "This time it's from Bethany," Jacob said, looking at the screen. The phone stopped ringing, but immediately message notification sounds followed. Jacob checked the screen, and his face changed color. "What does it say?" Emily asked. "Give me back Lily. She needs me. I need her too." Jacob read aloud with a trembling voice. Emily stood up. "Let's call the police." "Wait, let's watch the situation a little longer. It's a family matter." However, the messages didn't stop. Calls and messages from Bethany kept coming. "Lily is my angel. A gift God gave me. Why are you hiding?" Then Margaret called too. This time, Jacob answered the phone. "Jacob, where on earth are you?" "Bethany is in a state of delirium." Margaret's voice could be heard from the speaker. "Mom, calm down. We're at home. Why did you leave without saying anything?" "Bethany has been searching for Lily for 2 hours now. She searched the entire house and is walking around the neighborhood." Emily looked at her husband. Jacob's expression was serious. "Bethany is saying..." Margaret continued, "Lily is the reincarnation of my miscarried child. God returned her to me. She's completely incoherent." "Mom," Jacob said firmly, "Bethany needs professional treatment." "Treatment? You're not suggesting psychiatry, are you?" Margaret's voice was upset. "She's just grieving. Time will heal her." "Mom, this is a serious problem. You saw Bethany's behavior today, didn't you? It's not normal." From the other end of the phone, Bethany's voice could be heard. "Brother Jacob, let me talk to Lily. Let me talk to my daughter." Emily trembled with fear. Bethany seemed to seriously believe that Lily was her daughter. "Mom, call the police." "Bethany needs to see a doctor," Jacob decided. "Police? But it's a family matter." "Mom, what if Bethany does the same thing to other children? If we hadn't escaped today, she might have tried to take Lily away." Margaret was silent for a long time. Then, in a weak voice, she said, "All right, I'll consult with a doctor." After the phone hung up, the couple faced each other in silence. "She's sick," Emily said quietly. "Yes." The failure of fertility treatments broke her heart, and she became obsessed with Lily. Another message arrived on Jacob's phone. This time it was from Margaret. "I called an ambulance. Bethany is agitated and trying to hurt herself. Let's go right away." Emily stood up. "No, you and Lily stay home. I'll go alone." "But, Emily, if Bethany sees you, she might get more agitated. Right now, keeping distance is important." Jacob hurried out. Emily was left alone in the living room and checked Lily's room several times. Her daughter was sleeping peacefully. Thinking that this young child had almost been caught up in the complex and dark emotions of the adult world, Emily's heart ached. Around 2 a.m., Jacob returned home. His face was exhausted. Bethany was taken to a psychiatric hospital, he quietly reported. According to the doctor, the hormone treatments from fertility therapy and repeated disappointments destabilized her mental state. She'll be hospitalized for a while and receive specialized treatment. Emily hugged her husband. "You protected us. I'd been worried for a while, but I never thought it would go this far." Jacob buried his face in his wife's hair. Mom finally understood how serious the situation was. That night, the couple couldn't sleep. They had experienced firsthand how family bonds could become complex and sometimes dangerous. 3 months later, Emily received a letter. The sender was Bethany. It was written in careful handwriting on stationery with the psychiatric hospital letterhead, "Dear Emily, Jacob, and Lily." The letter began, "I am truly sorry for the trouble my illness caused all of you. When I think back to Thanksgiving Day, I can now understand how terrifying what I was about to do was. Through treatment, I learned how unstable my mental state had been. Years of fertility treatments and repeated miscarriages caused me to lose the boundary between reality and wishful thinking. When I looked at Lily, I superimposed the images of the children I had lost and eventually fell into the delusion that she was my daughter. I am deeply grateful that Brother Jacob protected you from me that day. If I had continued acting that way, it would have been irreparable. As part of my treatment, I am learning about adoption. I am seriously considering welcoming an adopted child in the future after discussions with doctors and specialized counselors, this time in the right way, putting the child's happiness first. I would like to keep my distance from all of you for a while. This is not an escape, but what I consider necessary time until I fully recover and can build healthy relationships. I hope that someday, in the true sense of family, we can meet again with smiles. At that time, please let me watch over Lily's growth as an aunt. With love, Bethany." When Emily finished reading the letter, she sighed deeply. When she showed the letter to Jacob, he had the same expression. "She's recovering," Jacob said quietly. "Being able to write this letter means she's beginning to accept reality." Spring passed, summer came, and the Thanksgiving season came around again. This year's Thanksgiving held a different meaning than usual. Margaret, deeply reflecting on last year's events, was re-examining her relationships with family. "I had confused sympathy with love," Margaret confessed while preparing food with Emily in the kitchen. "I felt sorry for Bethany and wanted to do something for her, but I hadn't thought about whether that would really be for her good. But I can understand your feelings too," Emily replied. "A mother's heart thinking of her daughter is very complex." Jacob was right. Sometimes making harsh choices for the people we love is also an expression of love. In the living room, Lily, having turned 6, was playing with her cousins in a more grown-up manner. She barely remembered last year's events but sometimes asked, "Is Aunt Bethany well?" The family gathered around the dining table again and offered a prayer of gratitude this year. However, its content was significantly different from last year. "We give thanks today that our family can be together," Jacob led the prayer. "And we pray for the recovery and happiness of family members who are apart. We have learned that true love means wishing for the other person's real happiness. And sometimes keeping distance is also an expression of love." Margaret added, "We have also learned about the courage to make difficult decisions and the responsibility to protect family. Love sometimes demands harsh choices. However, if those choices are right, we believe that someday there will come a day when we can understand each other." After the meal, Emily and Jacob were talking in the yard. "According to the letter from Bethany, she'll get overnight leave permission next month," Jacob reported. "The adoption procedures are also going smoothly." "That's good. She found her own path. Someday we surely will have a day when we can meet, at that time in a healthy relationship for both of us." Under the starry sky, the couple quietly talked about the future. The bond called family was complex in ways that couldn't be measured by blood relations alone. However, they learned that true affection means prioritizing the other person's happiness and sometimes putting the other person's needs above one's own feelings. And they came to understand that true family means relationships where people wish for each other's happiness and can make harsh decisions when necessary. Love sometimes comes with trials, but when those are overcome, they are bound by deeper ties. This is what they came to understand and knew on that Thanksgiving night.